Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. Today is Monday, the 25th of April 2016, and according to the lunar Muslim calendar, this is the 17th of Rajab. I bring you today another episode of my weekly program, Double Standards, which I always do on Monday, 6 to 7 p.m. Today's topic is again Saudi Arabia, and the reason for picking up this topic is that King Salman of Saudi Arabia, a few hours ago, he revealed a highly ambitious economic reform program in Saudi Arabia. So I shall be discussing that and try to link that up with the political discontent going on in Saudi Arabia for quite a while. But like I always say that this is a live and interactive program. So I discuss the issue for the first half of the program, and I take a break at about 6:30 p.m. And when I come back after the break, I encouragingly invite you to ask a question or pass a comment or share your viewpoint on today's topic. So like I said, the topic for today is, can Saudi rulers redeem themselves? Big question. I shall be discussing this topic in the context of Saudi Suderi King Salman's reform program, which he called today as the vision for the kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the next 5 years. This was an impressive as far as the wording was concerned. The areas he discussed and areas he touched upon to bring sweeping reforms was highly impressive. The international media would be picking it up. All the newspapers tomorrow will be picking up this news story on their front pages, and the electronic media of the world has already started many news breaks and news items on this as soon as they got the information about that. So I being the student of history, current history I would say, should I take it as a genuine political program by King Salman to open up, which hitherto is a mystery for all the people around Saudi Arabia, the GCC countries, the Arab League, the 57 Muslim countries, and 197 countries of the world on the planet. So is this shrouded in mystery again, or there is some real job? But in all, should we call it again another episode of the Game of Thrones, if I may call it? Let's see, what is he expressing through that program is that he calls it a comprehensive and far-reaching economic reform program. And this he has revealed in a bid to address the ongoing economic and social and political crises in the country for the last 20 years or so. When we say the economic crisis, they are triggered by plummeting price of crude oil and the depletion of their resources. Currently, it's under $35 per barrel, and it's going progressively down and down every day. Regarding the crude oil reserves, as Saudi Arabia has got as the largest producer of the crude oil, currently at 270 billion barrels, but they are depleting at a very rapid pace. Then the problem is the political discontent. The political discontent is that Saudi Arabia is being branded all the times as a country without transparency or accountability to 29 million people, the royal family, the royal hierarchy that is controlling the state affairs, home affairs, defense affairs, and foreign policy. And of course, huge wealth, petrodollars, under their control. And then another reason for political chaos, ongoing chaos, is that Saudi Arabia had municipal elections on the 12th of December 2015, last year. This is a little over 4 months ago. But all those who were elected, they are expressing their resentment. And resentment is escalated because they say they don't have any political mandate or power, and they don't have any resources to play their role to resolve the issues at the local level, the economic, political, employment, health, jobs, and all these things. So if they don't have resources, if they don't have a mandate, they won't be able to perform. So just like Pakistan's farcical local government elections that were held a few months ago, and all those who were elected for the local governments, they are without power, without offices, without the staff, without funds. So Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, they share their highly idealistic local government model. That is a zero-sum game. Nothing for the people, nothing for the larger masses of the countries, both. So this is something they share with each other. Maybe the Sharif brothers in Pakistan and King Salman, they have this policy which is quite homogeneous. They share that. The next is the growing social upheaval in the east and southeast of Saudi Arabia. That region is oil-rich region. There are about 80% of Saudi oil reserves are there. The deposits are there. So there is political and social upheaval, social discontent over there, especially when the Saudi Arabian regime is persecuting the minorities of that area. Not only the Shias, but a large numbers of millions of Hanafi Muslims are also complaining, though with the feeble tone, that they are being persecuted. Their basic human rights are being denied. So minorities are really the cause of discontent, social discontent in Saudi Arabia. So bearing these things in mind, there was a long time craving from the internal decision makers that we need to open up. We need to introduce reforms to redress the grievances of the people who are suffering that for the last many, many decades. Now, bearing this in mind and addressing these perennial domestic issues, King Salman and his team, they have finally decided to introduce some sort of reforms. The results of these reforms will be available to the world at large, maybe in a year or 2 years' time, that how dedicated, how committed, and how honest the Saudi ruling elites are towards emancipating their masses, providing them the economic succor, political power sharing, and of course redressing their social problems. Now, when he was revealing his this vision for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia today, the Saudi rulers, when they were doing that, they addressed the 4 major issues. And all those 4 major issues, all those 4 major reforms they would be introducing, they hover around the word called privatization. So privatizing, disinvestiture of the state-owned enterprises. So they addressed the 4 things. They included the list of 4 big items to privatize in the next 2 to 3 years. And these areas are privatizing the Saudi Aramco. So the biggest economic sector, the biggest financial sector that brings billions of petrodollars to Saudi Arabia and has been bringing for the last 60, 70 years. Next is privatization of the public investment fund. Now remember, this investment fund was launched a few years ago, and it hasn't delivered substantially, but still some people they say, some Saudi academics, some Saudi businessmen, they say that still it has helped the business sector in the last few years or so. The next is number 3. Point number 3 is privatization of major airports and seaports. That's a very major shift. That's a big decision. If they privatize their seaports, then obviously their seaports, there would be freedom for all the vessels operating and doing the maritime trade with Saudi Arabia. And having said that in maritime, the lion's share of that trade is with Iran. So obviously, I find somewhere on the diplomatic or political horizon of Saudi Arabia that down the line somewhere they perhaps they want to view if in case they have to go towards a rapprochement with Iran at some point. And the last 4th point they discussed was the privatization of their aviation industry. So aviation industry is a huge industry that brings huge revenues to the Saudi economy. So the Saudian airline and of course domestic and international airlines. So these 4 areas it's very ambitious plan. If they're able to deliver even 50% of this, I think within next 3 to 5 years' time, Saudi Arabia would be a different society. Saudi Arabia would be a different political entity. And the huge landmass of Saudi Arabia will see some substantial development. And that development will tick a few boxes in favor of Saudi Arabia, that Saudi Arabia is behaving like a responsible partner, responsible actor in the Arabian Sea and Red Sea and the Gulf. So these 3 areas. So we have to see that what was the objective? This is a very important question. What caused the Saudi monarch to introduce these reforms? Now, one is the economic factor, of course. The Saudis, they intend to raise $200 billion in the next 3 to 5 years. I discussed this issue in another program at another television channel recently, that there was a time when the Saudi wealth was in excess of $2 trillion. So the cash flow at one time, all the time, that was $2 trillion. But in the last 10 years, as the Saudis, they have been burning their candle at both ends. They have been spending extravagantly on procuring arms and weapons, military hardware and military equipment. So in the last 10 years, they have been spending their wealth like a very extravagant shenanigan. So now the current statistics show that the total wealth of the Saudi royal household, so the Suderi tribe, the first-tier princes and princesses, and about 40,000 individuals in the total population of 29 million Saudis. So 40,000 people, they are controlling the wealth of $650 billion. Now that again is under the control of one man, that 30-year-old schoolboy. We call it a pedocrat. It's another form of government, and we call the government like gerontocracy, the government of old people like his father, King Salman. The model of rule, the ruling model, another model is genocracy, the rule by the generation, by the cronies, by relatives, by through nepotism. And then we have plutocracy, the government by the highly rich people, filthy rich people. That's plutocracy. Then we call ochlocracy. It's a form of government which is through the mob. Certain countries in the world, they are pursuing that form of government as ochlocracy. Ochlocracy is a sort of anarchy. The powerful people behind the trigger of the guns, they control, and through the power, political power, through their thugs, and through the military, they control the state affairs. So in Saudi Arabia, what we see is all forms of government. You name the form of the government, which Plato, Aristotle, Jack Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes, and John Locke, egalitarians, like the utilitarians like J.S. Mill, Jeremy Bentham, all these people, they have been expounding these political ideas through the 17th and 18th and 19th centuries. So you name the form of a failed government, the Saudis, they have it. So now this government, though under King Salman, the power, the virtual power is with his son, 30-year-old Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He controls the defense. So whatever Saudi Arabia is procuring, the arms, the weapons, the military, and the deployment of armed forces, equipment, and relations with the weapon sellers in the United States, UK, France, Germany, and other big weapon producers in the world. So he is interfacing and interacting with them. In addition to that, he controls the national exchequer of Saudi Arabia. So he is virtually sitting on $650 billion. And in addition to that, about $1 trillion worth of investment they have in United States, about 10 to 15 billion dollars worth of £1 worth of investment in UK and the European Union, countries like Germany, France, Italy, and powerful countries. So he is a $1 trillion man who controls the main battle tanks, the artillery pieces, the aircraft, the bombers, and whatever Saudi Arabia has got in its military inventory, he is sitting at the main gate. So he is a deciding authority. So what a powerful man this guy is, who is only 30 years old. So they have now realized, perhaps they've got the lesson recently, last week when they had extraordinary Gulf Cooperation Council summit on last Wednesday and Thursday, 2-day summit in Riyadh, where the US president, before he flew to attend the 90th birthday of the British monarch, so he was there for a day and a half, along with his Defense Secretary Ash Carter and Secretary of State John Kerry. Now John Kerry and Ash Carter, they have visited Saudi Arabia in the last 3 years more than 3 times. So obviously they have been giving the medication slowly and gradually. That looks, King Salman, previously to King Abdullah and Crown Prince at that time, who was Prince Makran, and later to King Salman, then his nephew Mohammed bin Naif, who is the Interior Minister, and then his son. So Secretary of State John Kerry and Defense Secretary Ash Carter, they have been giving these pills to these 3 people in Saudi Arabia, that please open up yourself. This is the time. You complain a lot that the world powers, they are giving some space to Iran, and Iran is behaving like a responsible partner, responsible actor in a geostrategic environment of Middle East and geopolitical environment of Middle East. So now there is some responsibility that you have on your shoulders, that you have to open up. So perhaps last Wednesday and Thursday was the tipping point when they said, all right, we will look forward to an appropriate day. So Sunday was the first working day, and they decided they must have got a very long meeting of the group of 7 who are around King Salman. So they said, okay, now we are deciding that we are opening up. And now we have to see that these $650 billion and their plan to sell the 4 areas in the last 3 to 5 years' time and raise $200 billion. So say by 3 years' time from now, they are able to have another $1 trillion, and they sell off their assets in the United States and raise about $750 billion to $1 trillion. And they make like $2 trillion. and then what will happen? That how they are going to reduce the defense budget? Are they going to reduce the pumping of oil just to stop the depletion of their oil reserves? And how they have to act and behave within OPEC to ensure that the price of crude oil goes up and doesn't go down. So we will discuss in details further, and after the break we take a short break, and after the break the telephone lines would be open. You're welcome to call and share your viewpoints. We take a break.